Welcome, everyone, to Real Estate 360 Live. I am your host, Ryan Sloper. For those of you not familiar with the program, my guests and I will cover every angle of real estate under the sun, from interest rates to the economy to what's happening in Washington. Anything that affects our local real estate market will be covered here. If you got credit issues and you're trying to buy a home, but you can't, you're struggling because you have credit issues that you feel like they can't be resolved, I tell many people, don't try to take that, on yourself to figure out how you can get your credit cleaned up. You want to leave it to the professionals that can help you with that. Reach out and call me. I can put you in touch with somebody that can get that turned around in many cases is 30, 60, 90 days. Get you on the fast track to purchasing a home again. If you're looking to refinance to the lowest rates in U.S. history and you're looking to work with a reputable lender, I recommend Gold Star Financial personally. Reach out to me at 877-245-2030, and I'd gladly put you in contact with them. Obviously, with the historical low rates that we have, you want to try to take advantage of them and capitalize as soon as possible if you're in a position that you're looking to buy a house now, or even if you're looking to refinance. Now is the time to do so, guys. We've been saying for weeks, months, that your rates are basically at the lowest all-time lows right now. They continue to go a little bit lower, but I just don't feel like they can go much lower than where they're at now. I mean, the government's adding on more and more fees, which is just driving the cost of these loans up. 877-245-2030. If you guys have any questions about anything we covered today at all, reach out to us on the off-air phone number, which is 877-245-2030. That's 877-245-2030. That's an off-air phone number. If you call, just please leave your name and contact information. We can get back to you by the end of business today. Or you can visit us at the web at realestate360live.com. That's realestate360live.com. Remember, if it's real estate, it's covered here. Got a great show lined up for you guys today. Joining me on our panel to discuss the many issues of what happened in the markets last week, as well as what's on tap this week that can affect you and your real estate decisions, is Louis Cammarosano, who is the general manager of HomeGain. Louis is often cited in the media as an industry expert in the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, CNN Money, Fox Business, Smart Money, MSN, and numerous others. Louis, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm just grand. How are you, Ryan?
I can't complain. Weather is pretty mild here. I'm a pretty big football fan, so had the Redskins loss again yesterday, but it seems like that's much of the same. Nothing really new around here. We've got a lot of stuff to cover today. Obviously, last week we went really in depth on the whole QE3, or basically QE Affinity. It's given probably numerous names at this point. It's QE Eternal. I feel like, after we spoke, we did see, interest rates have continued to slide down. And it's interesting because the Fed had came out and had said that, they're willing to spend up to $40 billion a month in buying mortgage-backed securities. Well, we're seeing that interest rates are coming down, but actually the 10-year note, which typically we kind of follow the mortgage-backed securities, what they're doing in tandem with the 10-year note. The 10-year note is still really unable to show much technical improvements. So what I really think that this, I think that this is a very critical level for the markets right now, and I feel like that there's not much more gains to be had as far as people looking for lower interest rates. Obviously, the stock markets are outperforming right now, and much of it has to do with QE. Many analysts are saying that this QE, obviously you and I, Louis, feel that it's not going to do any good. It's doing more harm than good. But a lot of analysts are saying that the $40 billion is not going to be enough, and it's not going to be very long before they need to start pumping, $100 billion, $200 billion in the market. So, what are your thoughts? Where do you see the Fed heading from here?
Well, it's kind of ridiculous because they've masked this whole thing in terms of helping the economy and helping to create jobs. And first of all, if they wanted to create jobs, $40 billion a month would create about $10 million, $50,000 a month jobs for a year.
Right.
And I don't advocate doing that. And if it goes to $80 billion, you could put 18 million people to work sweeping the streets. So it's got nothing to do with jobs, and I wouldn't advocate using money to do that. But what they're doing is they're buying assets that no one in their right mind would buy, they're bailing out whoever owns them, whether the banks or Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae. So I think they're committed to, everyone calls it the bubble economy, I call it the musical chairs economy, where basically they want an economy that's based on people borrowing money and moving in and out of homes.
Yeah.
Really, does not really help the economy. And once the music stops and the credit stops flowing, that's where you have exactly what happened last time. People end up with overpriced homes that they can't pay for. They have to foreclose, and the whole process has to start again. But I don't think you can start again because we're already at low interest rates right now. So I just think that they're going to continue these kind of backdoor bailouts and, phrase it with language that it's going to help the economy, it's going to make people feel richer, it's going to put people to work, and it's going to do none of those things other than bail out the banks and continue to keep the cost of borrowing low for the federal government.
Yeah, and continue to pad these banks' balance sheets. I mean, they've got some $2+ trillion in reserves that's just sitting there on the sideline. At some point, Lewis, I mean, all this money that they're just printing out of thin air, it's got to trickle out at a certain point. And
but that's not in a good way, though, Ryan.
No, that's what I mean, and not in a good way. And my fear is that when it does happen, it's not going to be just like some subtle thing that's going to take months and months. I think it's going to happen relatively quick. And people that are banking on seeing these low interest rates forever, it's not going to happen. Now, the Fed has made the commitment to keep basically interest rates as low as possible for an extended amount of period of time until the employment situation gets better. But you just alluded to that by them doing this, it's not going to change the employment situation at all.
And it's also not going to change the productive capacity of the country's economy. It's certainly not going to increase savings, which could lead to investment in production. It's basically hoping that people borrow money to buy houses so the asset value of the homes go up, or because they can't save their money, they toss it into the stock market and stock market prices go up. Meanwhile, they keep interest rates low so borrowers can continue to borrow, including governments. And in a way, I think they're hoping that they can inflate their way out of the amount of debt that they owe by printing up more and more dollars. And I saw the other day that Mitt Romney came out with a white paper. It was kind of buried in the news. I haven't read it yet, but I kind of tossed it aside when I read one of the highlights was he's saying we have to reignite the housing economy. And basically saying we need to reflate the bubble.
Yeah.
And, that just doesn't make a stitch of sense. Again, I don't think an economy of moving in and out of houses, the musical chairs economy, makes a lot of sense long term. Housing should be reflected. The housing market should be reflective of the strength of the economy so that people have money, people have jobs, they have savings, and they can buy houses. Not that you create an economy where money flows because people are moving in and out of houses.
Yeah, I agree. I had a little tidbit on that. I was going to bring that up later in the show. That essentially that white paper that you were discussing was only, I believe, like a 7-page document. Many was calling it, it had to be some sort of a joke because basically there was a cover page, 3 pages that lay out the current situation and bash Obama's policies, and then 1 page which is some sort of executive summary that was recapping the other 2 pages, but it didn't really give any specific details. But
trying to make political points is all it is.
Exactly. And much of the plan was essentially the same stuff that Obama already has in place. That's they plan to just get rid of the GSEs, restructure them, and try to privatize stuff. But good luck doing that. I don't see that changing. They've got, I believe, just Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they've got an inventory of like 200,000 homes right now that they've taken back via foreclosure that they still haven't figured out how to get rid of all of them. And so this is much of the same stuff. And, it's interesting because I believe that they had an interview with Obama last night on 60 Minutes as well as Mitt Romney. We don't hear one question about, okay, we're headed for the fiscal cliff. What are we going to do? Those questions are never asked. And if they are asked, they're answered in a way that just basically says that we're gonna continue to strive for job growth, and that's how this country's going to turn around. But we're not going to get job growth.
No, if you look at what the media focuses on with respect to the candidates, it's not really about the issues. It's more about trying to figure out what kind of person they are. How do they feel about the American people? Do they represent the 47%? The 99%, the 1%.
Right.
They're not really talking about it even in terms of policies. They're talking about what these guys say, how they behave, how they act, what their haircut looks like, whether they've lost weight. So really there is not any focus on what the substantive issues are that are facing the country, especially with regards to the debt and with regards to this kind of panic of needing to buy more mortgage-backed securities. And I read that John Williams of the San Francisco Federal Reserve Bank is saying that, we could probably need to buy more treasuries outright after Operation Twist ends at the end of the year. So, they didn't really, when they announced QE3, we didn't hear anything about buying treasuries, and now we're starting to hear, they only talked about buying mortgage-backed securities. Now they're starting to say, we'll buy treasuries too. In other words, when you can print up money and buy stuff, that's what they're going to do.
Right, yeah.
They're going to buy mortgage-backed securities, treasuries. I wouldn't be surprised if the stock market crashed. They start buying up the Dow Jones 30, 100, whatever they feel like doing.
Just to give the perception that, and it's like we discussed many shows ago, it's like, the Fed is basically, the wizard right now. And they're pulling all the strings. And it's just, if one thing, if they have to bail somebody out, if the stock market, like you said, if they crash, they'll bail them out. If the banks, if they start to fail, they'll bail them out. They're willing to bail out everybody but just the general everyday average Joe. And
the funny thing is the average Joe does benefit from a structurally sound economy. It's like feeding the squirrels in the park. If everyone feeds the squirrels reproduce, times are good. But if you close the park or people stop feeding the squirrels, then they realize there's not enough food in the park and they all die off, or just a few of them remain. You cannot keep feeding the squirrels and hoping that somehow, you can keep printing money forever and think that that's going to give people money, make them feel rich. They may feel rich, but it's an illusion. If the underlying economy is not sound, they're really just wasting time, wasting money, and really making it a disaster in the making.
Yeah, I mean, and then, the end of this story, it whether it's, 2 years from now, a year from now, 6 months, we don't really know. We don't know the timeline. We don't know how long this so-called Ponzi scheme can continue.
Let's say it works. It's going to end again. I mean, you can get people to start buying houses again, but if they don't have jobs and if the economy doesn't improve and the stock market goes up, what happens when it crashes again?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there is no...
Either rinse, repeat. I mean, just keep printing up more money.
That's been, it's been interesting how things have changed over the last, couple years where, the Fed has just basically been given all authority. The president and Congress, they don't really ask that many questions of what the Fed's doing. That's why Ron Paul for the longest time was calling, to stop the Fed, end the Fed, and audit the Fed to find out what they're actually doing, what kind of backroom bailouts are taking place. But then that Bernanke basically says, hey, well, that can't be done because you'll ruin,
Independence.
Yeah, exactly. That if we know what they're actually doing, well, obviously what they're doing is probably stuff that they shouldn't be doing. And, they don't want the public to be privy to that information. I mean, they don't.
It's very paternalistic, as if they know best. Just leave it to us while we print up money, send it to our buddies, and we'll tell you everything's going to be fine when we're done handing out money to our friends.
Right, and the fact that he's basically willing to come out and say now that they're going to keep printing money until the unemployment rate changes. Well, based upon the QE1, QE2, what does he think is going to change? Nothing. Nothing's going to change.
No, he's making it worse because you're entrenching the companies that have the bad balance sheets. You're putting all the money back into the companies that mismanage the money, and now you're trying to say to those companies, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, look, you can carry on, you can continue to make bad loans. In fact, we encourage you to make bad loans because we want more people buying houses, even if they're not qualified.
Yeah, and that's the other component of, keeping mortgage interest rates low, right? You would think that, okay, that's great because now people are going to be able to buy houses. Interest rates, the lower they go, the more people that are going to be out there that might qualify. Well, guess what, guys? It's harder today to qualify for a loan than it was yesterday, a year ago, 2 years ago, and it's going to continue to get tougher the lower interest rates go. That's just the nature of the beast. Banks don't want to lend at these low rates, so they just, keep hiking up, making things more difficult for you to obtain a loan. We're coming up on a break, guys. When we come back, this one city in Philadelphia may sue a developer who spent $20,000 removing trash from a vacant lot next to his business. When we come back, stay right there.